Today we are going to be making a wild mushroom fettuccine. So we're going to walk through a couple of things when we're making this. We're going to make our pasta from scratch. We're going to cut up our mushrooms. We're going to make a sauce. And we're going to do some beautiful plating. So this pasta in its entirety should take about 2 hours to make. And most of that time is going to come from the pasta dough having to rest. So when you have a little extra time and you want to make a really nice dinner that's really hands-on, this is a really good go-to dish. It's not very intimidating and it's very easy to do. So we're gonna go ahead and start with making the pasta. With the pasta, we have 3 simple ingredients. So we have our eggs, our all-purpose flour, and our semolina flour. Now, with the semolina flour, try to find something that's not so very fine. You want to get something that's pretty coarse that adds a very nice bite to the pasta. So we're gonna go ahead and start breaking up the eggs. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're separating the whites from the yolks. You don't want any whites inside of the pasta dough. What that tends to do, it changes the texture completely. It makes the dough swell up a lot more. It has less of a bite. So when we're going to be mixing the pasta together, we're going to be measuring our ingredients by volume. Now, what that means is that it's going to be equal parts eggs, all-purpose flour, and semolina flour. So I just like to eyeball it. I'll get 3 containers that are all usually around the same size. So we have all here equal parts eggs, AP flour, and semolina. So this is where I think the most fun part of making pasta is. So we're gonna mix our semolina flour with our AP flour, and you wanna mix the 2 dry ingredients together until it looks around the same homogeneous texture and look. It's gonna look very white, light, powdery. It's not gonna look very yellow anymore, and that's fine. Because once we get the eggs in there, that's going to give it that beautiful color. Now, what you want to do is you want to lay your flour flat and create a well. And what that well is going to be there for, it's going to be for the eggs to drop. And you're just going to start mixing in the middle. Try to keep the eggs in the middle as you mix with your hands. I have a bench scraper that's gonna help me out. When it starts getting more of a shape, I start using my bench scraper to fold it in back to itself. So I'm scraping from the bottom and I'm lifting up and over to the top. You're gonna get to a point where your pasta's gonna start to make shape, but it doesn't really hold together. Now that's a very good start. So you wanna go ahead and scrape your hands clean. If there's any types of pasta pieces that look like they have eggs in them, you want to bring it back together. If you leave that towards the end, it's not going to mix back into the pasta. It's going to make it not so much the same texture. It's going to give it a dry bite. So this is when I start kneading the dough. You can bring all that flour back in. You can run your hands through it. Add that back in. Now, as far as portion size, when you want to make pasta for a large group of people, you want to use about 2 to 3 eggs per person. That's usually a pretty good portion size to start off with. And now my pasta dough is starting to take shape. It's holding together very, very nice. It's not breaking apart. It's not very soft. Very similar to Play-Doh. Now your pasta dough is starting to look a lot like this when you're about 3 to 5 minutes into working the pasta dough into itself. Now it shouldn't be sticking. As you see, my board, there's no residue from the dough. If you have that, just run your flour gently along the top, make it look like it's dusted, and work your dough back over it. Now you know when you're all done, when your pasta dough looks the same texture throughout, it's holding all together. And when you push down on it, it should give a nice bounce back. So now that our pasta dough is all nice and done, mixed all together, important step about this is wrapping it up. I use plastic wrap to wrap up my pasta dough. And the reason for this is you don't want your pasta dough to dry up while it's sitting out. You don't want it to gray around the outside, which the eggs will oxidize if that happens. And also, most importantly, you want the dough to rest. So now we're gonna go ahead and start chopping up all of the ingredients that we need to cook with our pasta. What I chose is a wild mushroom pasta. So for that, you're going to use the different type of mushrooms that you would use, like go for the shemeijis, the shiitakes, the portobellas, the chanterelles, the morels, all that stuff. The more, the merrier. So what I chose are the maitake mushrooms. With these, they have a very nice meaty flavor, very similar to portobello, but a more firm texture. I'm also using shemeiji mushrooms. These are very tiny. They have a nice snap to them. Very delicious when they're also roasted. Shallot, garlic, and my favorite ingredient ever, butter. We also have some hot chicken stock over here in a pot that we're gonna use to help glaze the pasta as well. One of my favorite mushrooms are maitake mushroom, like I was mentioning earlier. So with maitake mushrooms, you can use almost the entire mushroom. You want to go ahead and cut off the bottom right here. Sometimes there's a little bit of dirt underneath that. You just want to go ahead and trim that off. Next, what I like to do is I like to break apart the mushroom, but I like to keep the shape. So it looks like little ears almost, how they are. So once you have everything broken apart in similar shapes, you can go ahead and put it over to the side in a bowl. So very similar to the maitake mushroom, you're gonna cut off the bottom of the shemeiji mushroom. The top will go ahead and fall apart, but the bottom just break apart just like the maitake mushroom. Place the mushrooms in the bowl with the other mushrooms, and we're gonna cook those together. For the shallot, we're gonna cut them in tiny little rings. Now for the garlic, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna slice those up. For the butter, I like to dice them up in uniform cuts. This makes it very, very easy to emulsify into the butter with the pasta and the stock, so it creates a very delicious glaze. So Now the fun part comes along. I was lying about playing with the egg yolks. You take your pasta out, it should be nice and soft, well rested like yourself. I like to use a rolling pin to flatten it out. Now the reason for that is you don't want to be making your pasta machine doing all the work. You want to get a workout for yourself too. During this process, if the pasta dough starts to stick to the table, just go ahead and lightly dust your pasta. When I start running it through the machine, I start off at the largest setting. And then I begin to fold the dough into shape. I start to square up the dough. So I fold it over to perfectly fit inside of the pasta machine. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm gonna do it one more time. This process, you don't want to overdo it because your dough will become overworked. Now when I say overworked, I mean the dough will start to work itself back from the shape. The dough will start shrinking down. When you're using a pasta machine and when you're making fresh pasta, you want to roll it out to about halfway, whatever setting it is. We're going to be making fettuccine pasta. When you get to your final setting, you want to roll it out twice to that number. That helps you get more of a true setting, a true thickness to what the machine is trying to deliver. Pasta should be nice, shouldn't be falling apart, should be holding nice together. So now that you have your pasta rolled out to your desired thickness, we're going to square it up. I like to cut my pasta about the length of my knife. Before we roll out the pasta, we're going to add some flour across the sheets. This is going to help your pasta from sticking after it's been cut by the machine. Next, We're gonna use our pasta machine over here. It has a different setting, the cutters for fettuccine and spaghetti. We're making fettuccine today. So now that we have all of our ingredients ready, all of our prep is done, and it's all here ready for me. So when I start cooking, it's within arm's reach and I can cook nice and fluid. So we're gonna start off with the hot pan right over here. I have it on full heat. We're gonna add in some blended oil. You wanna add in just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. Mushrooms have a tendency to take up a lot of oil. We're gonna add in salt and pepper in now. So now that we got some really good color on the mushrooms, it's time to start adding in our other ingredients. We're gonna add in butter. Garlic and shallots. So now that there's a nice amount of cook, but no color on the garlic and the shallots, we're gonna add in our chicken stock. We are gonna reduce the liquid down by half. It's getting pretty close, so pasta that's fresh only takes about 2 to 3 minutes in the boiling water to be done. A much faster cooking time. Now is a good time to start adding in that butter I was talking about. So now that you see that the butter has melted into the sauce, the pasta with the starch on the outside of it is going to help emulsify the sauce as well. So if you run out of liquid and if you run out of stock, you can use pasta water as well. So your sauce should look like this. Your pasta should be nice and glazed. Nothing should be sticking to the pan. And it should taste seasoned. Time to get this delicious hot pasta into our bowl so we can enjoy. You want to make sure you get a lot of that pan sauce and mushrooms right all over the top. My favorite part, cheese. Black pepper. And that is how you make the mushroom fettuccine.